Alright, hi there guys. In this video, we're going to be taking what we did here. We wrote all of our markup, and we're going to start doing the fun stuff, which is actually styling the website. Sadly, right now we're not going to be doing anything too exciting. The main focus of the video is coming up with our variables. So I'm going to be creating our variable files, and we're going to just be setting up most of our variables based on our design. And then I'll also go through and do the base styles, which is mostly the body, H1, H2 paragraph styles. So things start coming together, and that means that after this, we can really plow through and make our design come to life. So let's jump right into that and get going. Now, one thing that's important is I've stopped my gulp build. If your gulp build is running because you're following through this series and you are using the gulp like I have set up, hit Command or Control C to stop it. I realize there's a little bit of a bug in it in the build that I put together, whereas if I create a new file, it won't watch for changes in that new file if this was already running. So I've already stopped that gulp build, and what I'm going to do now is come into my SCSS folder here, and I'm going to make two new folders. I'm going to create a modules folder, and that's what's going to hold all my variables, any mix-ins that I decide to create, pretty much anything that doesn't get actually compiled into CSS. And I'm going to come here and make another new folder. This folder is going to be called partials. And this is all the, whoops, that shouldn't be in my modules. That should just be in my SCSS folder. So SCSS, I have my modules and I have my partials. My partials folder is going to be all of the different things. So I'm going to have one for my welcome, one for this, or maybe all of that actually could be in one. I'll have another file that's going to be for this about me type of thing. Another one that's going to be for my portfolio, my contact, my footer, and of course when I click on this, something that pops up, and of course my navigation as well will have its own partial. I don't want to do anything too complicated in this project, but so that is going to be my basic setup for this. So in my modules, we'll go into there. I'm just going to have three files. I'm going to make one called _all.scss. This is, I've started working this way because I had this really bad tendency of forgetting to load things into my main. I know I still have to load them into my all, but for some reason I just find I remember better. I don't know why, but you'll see how I do this in a second. So I'm going to have my all, I'm going to have _typography.scss. And if you haven't been using Sass and you're not really sure how all of this works, by having an underscore on it, it means that this shouldn't be compiled into its own CSS file. This is going to be imported, so we're telling it that this will be imported. Don't make a file out of this. And that's why the main doesn't have an underscore on it. And one more, _colors.scss. Let's start with our colors. Actually, let's go back to all for a second. And my all will import typography. And it will import colors. We can save that. So now what I can do in my main is I can just do an @import, and I can say modules all. So I'm just importing all my modules. And just so we can make sure that this is actually all working, I'm going to start my gulp build back up now. So it will be taking into account the existing files I have. Cool. We can see, I can close this because it always opens up a new one. So to see if it's actually working in my colors here, let's just do body, background of red, and we can see it worked. So I'm very happy about that, and I'll save. One other thing that I'll just mention quickly, just in case you weren't following along from before, is I am now using VS Code. So if you've seen some of my older videos, I was using Atom. I started trying to play around with VS Code because I heard a lot of really good things about it, and I've sort of fallen in love with it. So I think this is my new editor. I really, really like it. One of the really nice things is having the terminal built in, and it's just a Command or Control backtick to open that up. And you can see it actually, I'm in the Node terminal right now. It also do the command prompt and PowerShell and a whole bunch. Anyway, it's really cool how this works. It also has Git integration, which is really nice as well. So for my colors, let's go back to XD here. So I have all my colors here. So we're going to have white, and I'm just going to type in all the different ones I have. We're going to have a light gray, a gray, dark gray. If you spell gray with an E, that's fine too. Dark gray, should I call that blue, or should I just call, let's just call that accent. I know I'm mixing up sort of semantic names, accent, and then the colors, but whatever. I don't want to call that, do we call it dark accent? I hate, so it will be dark blue. I know you might not be in love with those names, so if you like, have other names you'd prefer to use, go for it. Now in here I can just do a copy. So I'm going to copy that. Copy, that's my dark gray. Copy that one. Copy my gray. Accent. And that's all my colors that I'm using in this. Now, what I need to decide is, do I give these more semantic names? Do I do things like body, font, color? Because, you know, I'm using that there. No, I'm not going to do that. It's a smaller project, and I think this will be plenty fine. So I'm going to stick with that. For my typography. My typography. This is a little bit more, I do one thing here, it's I guess a little bit opinionated, but I do load in my Google font import into my typography, even though I said that in general my modules don't actually have any CSS code in them, and this does get imported. But that is just, I find it easier for me. That's the way I like to stay organized. So here in my Google Fonts, I've already got it in, so I have Merriweather and 6 caps, and Merriweather regular and black, and here 6 caps. There's only the one. So I'm gonna click over to my import, copy you, and right at the top there, I can save that. Then I can set up my styles. So I don't remember where I got this from. It's relatively recently, but I've started using it and I really like it. Just to shorten things up. So I'm gonna have a font family, and I'm literally just gonna do font family S for serif. So font family hyphen serif. And my font family serif is Merriweather, comma, not period, comma, sans serif. And then my font family sans serif is 6 caps serif. Oh, I did these backwards. Serif. This should be just a serif. There we go. Save. So I could sort of come in and, if I wanted to, have font family heading and font family body. I could definitely do that. This is my body, and then, but see, I mean, I sort of mix it up because this is a heading and it's using 6 caps. This is an H2 6 caps. This is an H1, and then I'm going into there. That's my H2, or that's an H2 actually. H2, H1. So I could have like in font family H1, font family H2. Yeah, I'm just gonna stick with this. Bigger projects, sometimes it can be more useful, but I'm gonna simplify my variables as much as possible. The other variables I need are, what else do I need? I have my font families. I want to just set up now, just trying to think really fast. What else do I need? I need to have my font weights, of course. So I'm going to have my font weight, and I'm going to have a font weight normal, which is 400, and a font weight of bold, which in this case is 900. I'm not using any light fonts, but it would be one of those easy enough things that, you know, I could have a font weight light and then have my 300 or whatever. But I don't need that in this one. So one thing you might be seeing people do is between here and on their colors, for the colors especially, you might see something like someone doing like a text primary, and then that would be my gray, I think. And then, I've done stuff like this, and I still do work like this sometimes. It really depends. So it's like text primary, text accent would be my accent color, text secondary, and have like their secondary color, etc., etc. You could go through and build all of those out. So I have all my text colors. Then I could do the same with background colors and all of that. I'm starting to, I understand the reasoning behind this, and I was all for it, but first, it does compartmentalize things a little bit. So if I change my accent color, it doesn't mean that everywhere is going to change. Or if I want my text accent to, my design changes. So my text accent is now actually just going to switch over to my dark blue instead because it works better for the design. I don't have to sort of screw everything up. But for a project of this size, maybe it's overkill. So you'll see the same thing in the typography of your font like this, and it's sort of like I mentioned, then you'd have your fine primary, secondary, and other stuff, and I just find for a project of this size, it might be a little bit of overkill. So cool, that is done. So I'm going to leave those open because I tend to need to reference them sometimes because I forget. And one thing, now we can start styling our body and other stuff, but I forgot to do something. And what that is I'm going to come in here and cancel this because I'm about to make new files. So I'm going to hit Command or Control C, and I'm going to hit yes, and we'll just go back to there, and I'm going to write clear just to get back so it looks like that. And for the moment, I'm going to just get rid of the terminal because I don't need it. So what I'm going to do is make a few new files here. The first thing I'm going to do is we need normalize. We don't need normalize, but I'm going to use normalize. I have done it in the past on a normalized file, and people have asked me about it, where I actually came into here and I modified it. And they're like, well, you're supposed to modify it? Yeah, you don't have to. It really depends how you want to use it. Read more about, is it here? Normalize, blah, blah, blah. Normalize versus reset. Doesn't clutter, is modular. Yeah, here you go. It gives you the potential to remove sections if you know they'll never be needed in your website. So how to use it? You install it. Then there are two main ways of using it. So use normalize as your starting point, and then customize the values to match your requirements, or include it untouched and build upon it overriding. So obviously you can use it however you want. So, just because you have this giant normalized file doesn't mean you actually have to use the whole thing. So we're actually going to have to make a new folder in here called vendor. And in my vendor, I'm going to create a new file called normalize.scss. And I'll paste that all in there. So, this is really one of those things where you can come through here and just get rid of anything you're not using. I also know I'm going to be setting my own heading size. Should I set it here? No, I'm not necessarily going to do that. I do know that here, like my figure, they're setting the margin. I'm going to be using figures, and I don't want it to actually have a margin on it. So it might even be worth it for me to just set that to 0, because in my design, these are going to be using figures, and those margins, I don't want them. So why would I have it resetting a margin and then getting rid of my own margin? You know what I mean? So let's just look through here really fast. HR, I'll leave, but I don't think I'm actually going to use it in my design. Pre, I know for a fact I'm not going to be using that. So why don't I just get rid of it? A, obviously I'm using. Strong code. I'm not going to be using that. Not going to be using that. The small, I'm not using currently, but it could be something that I end up using. These I know for a fact. And we're just going to fly through this as fast as possible. I'm not going to get rid of those, even though I don't have plans on using it, because video, it's one of those things that might at one point get brought in. Buttons, inputs, all of that, obviously I want to keep. We'll just keep anything that's related to forms, because we're going to have a form. Interactive details menu, do we get rid of that? Canvas template, it's not too bad. We're down at the bottom now. So it's just to say you can definitely modify this to fit your thing, and make changes in here if you think they're important to make, and get rid of stuff you're not using, because what's the point in having it if you're not using it? So what I'm going to do now is go over to my main and add import. Don't forget your semicolons in these. I always do. If you've followed my other series, I've run into a lot of problems for forgetting semicolons on my imports. So what is this? Vendor slash normalize. Save. If you're not used to Sass, again, I'm not including the underscore on this, and I'm not putting the .scss. I don't need to do that. It knows what I want, so I'm just writing it out like that. And we can also save that file. Then I'm going to come into my partials, and in here we'll make a new file called all.scss. And for now, we'll make one new one called _base.scss. Some people make also a base folder that has this, but my base is sort of its own partial in the way I like to work and the way I visualize it in my head. Don't feel like you have to organize this the way I'm organizing it. Find a system that works for you and organize your SCSS files or your Sass files in a way that you think makes a lot of sense. Because to me, that's clearly the best way to do stuff. You don't want to, if you're new, maybe it's a good idea to follow what other people are doing, but always be wondering about what's going to work best for you and use what works really well for you. So my base is there. So at import base, save, and I just want to make sure we're not. So then at import, see, I like that it shows me the color is way off. At import partials / base, save. Not base, all. I guess for my vendor, I don't have an all, but I think that's going to be my only vendor anyway. So it should be fine. So I'm importing my base into my all.scss, which is then being imported into my main. And with all that done, I'm going to open this back up and start gulp again. Or wait 2 seconds, and there we go. It's in my other window, but that's okay. Let's just resize this so you guys can see it a little better. So my base styles, well, this is pretty much my body. All the styles that you normally put on your body. So the first thing, let's see, is my color. So my color is going to be gray. And I'm going to save that, and let's just make sure it is working. Yeah, we can see that the color changed there. Cool. My base is like my color, my basic typography settings, and some stuff like that we'll be setting up, which would be the base of, well, that's the rest of what we're doing in this video. And then after that, we'll actually get into styling what we're seeing on the screen and making it look a little bit nicer. So color gray, yeah. Font family, my default font family should be my font family serif. We should have, again, I just want to make sure it's working. It is, cool. So I have my font family serif. My line height, what's my line height? I wish this could not be there. 22/14 comes up to like 1.57, so my line height would be just 1.6. Some people like organizing things here in alphabetical order, which I just happen to be doing by chance right now, but I just do it sort of as it comes off of my head. And I sometimes will reorganize things. Say I have position absolute, then I like having my top, left, right, bottom all grouped together. But I don't really have a rhyme or reason behind how I write this stuff. I find it easier just to write it as I'm looking at it. I'm probably going to forget a couple of things on here too, but my background, you don't have to do this, but setting your background to a color can prevent problems. Apparently, I've never actually seen the problems, but it's one extra line of CSS. It's not going to cause any big issues. For my body, what else can I do? I have my line height. That looks pretty good. Okay, so let's start styling a few of my other things. Now, close to the right, close unmodified, close. One thing I don't remember how to do. Aha, there we go. That's what I wanted to do. I can close normalize. I can close typography for now. I can close my colors, base. There we go. I remembered. I did that just as an H1. Oh yeah, because that's a span. Okay, that's fine. My H1, the font family is the default one, so I'm not going to be more specific on that because my H1, yeah. The color of my, this will be color is, whenever I'm using variables, sometimes I do that. My color is accent. I don't need this right now, but if ever I need to refer to my HTML, I do like having it on the side. So color is accent. Line height, we'll just put my line height to 1 for now, which is probably what it's going to need to be. My font size. So if it's 50, that would be 3.125 rem. have a calculator close by for doing this. You can come up with like a little mix-in or function in Sass that can convert. You write in the pixel value and it just pumps it out for you. But just, yeah, I just have a calculator next to me. I find that's easy enough to do. Okay, so that's good. That's probably all we need. My H2. We might as well do it here. Span. And just so you know, if you're not used to Sass, you can see this is embedded in here. If you're writing this on your own, and you're just doing normal CSS, you just have H1 span like that and do your thing. But because I'm using Sass, I can do this instead. So my span, this will be, the color will be accent. And I'm thinking ahead, just my color is going to have to be accent because the color there is different from the color here. So color accent, font, not font size, font family is my font family sans serif. And the font, it's going to also be a display block that's going to make it be on its own line. And the font family, font size, I need a letter spacing. I have to go back to my typography after. Font size, what's my font size going to be? My font size is pretty big on this one, I think. 88. Funnily enough, that's just 5.5 rem. So it actually comes out to a nice round number. Letter spacing. Let's open up my typography again. We're going to have letter spacing. It's 200. Yeah, I'm just going to write that whole thing out. I'm pretty sure it's 200, right? It's 200 here. I can't do that in here. Okay, we'll just start with like 10 pixels and we'll figure it out. Right, I think it needs to be a pixel value. So my letter spacing will be letter spacing. I wonder if I could have done an extend on, oh well, whatever. My H2, we can have that. My font size, 32 is an easy one, 2 rem. You're always basing it on 16, right? So that one's easy. Letter spacing, and most of the time the color will be a dark gray. And I'll also put the line height to 1 on this one for now. Cool. So that takes care. We have this one done. We have this. Just trying to think. We have that one done, this one done. And those are fine. I don't need to come up with a style for those. Let's go look at what our actual site is looking like right now. Did I put my span? I put the span on the beginning and not the end. I'm going to change that. Oops. Save. That makes more sense. So that's okay. I obviously need to play with my font sizes on there. I put the wrong font family, guys. H2, I didn't put a font family. Font family is font family. I might make a mix in font family sans serif because every time I need this, I need to have. Okay, we're making a mix in. I'm not gonna. I think it's gonna be my only mix in. So I'm just gonna do it in my typography. So at mix in, it's gonna be called sans serif. Anytime I'm using the sans serif font, this is important because the way 6 caps is working, I always need it to have letter spacing. I always need it to have all caps. So if I'm always having to write those lines in, it's really annoying to have to do that. So I'm gonna have this, and then we're gonna have some variables on it that we can, or variables, some options here that we're gonna put, and we're gonna have it output something. So we're gonna have it output letter spacing will be, we'll just call this letter spacing. We're gonna have okay, we're gonna do a few things here. Let's do a font size of font size, letter spacing, font size, letter spacing, color will be color. why am I hyphening it? Let's just do it like this. You'll see why I'm doing it like this in a second. So font size, letter spacing, color, text transform, line height, I guess. We'll put line height on there too. Line height will be line height. Whoops, line height. Okay, and the reason that I'm doing it like this with all these variables here, I don't want to have to write them each time because, as I mentioned, they're going to be pretty consistent. But what we're going to do is we're going to put them up here. So I'm going to say my font size, comma. Then we're going to have letter spacing, but it's going to have a default of 10 pixels. So this is an optional one. If I don't put in anything for that, it's automatically going to become 10. And I don't know if 10 actually looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. So I'm going to leave that like that. Actually, this probably should be relative to the font size, right? So I should probably do it in M's, 10 over 16.6 M. Let's see what that looks like. That's just a pure guess right there without pulling out the calculator. My color will be by default. What will my color be by default? We'll just have it set to gray by default, but it could be overwritten. Color is gray, text, whoops, color is gray, text transform is going to be uppercase, and line height, whoops, line height by default will be 1. Undefined variable letter spacing. Where did I use a variable of letter spacing partials base? Did I delete it? I had one and I got rid of it? Yeah, okay. So let's delete all this from my span, delete all this, 5.5. I'll remember that. Delete all that. At include serif. And so what am I including? I'm including, do I have to change, I need to change my, so what am I changing? I need my font size. So my font size is 5.5 rem. If I save that, bang, say yes, it worked, awesome. Except did I put the wrong frickin' font again? Font size, letter space, I didn't put the font. Font family, in this case it's always just going to be font family sans serif. There we go, awesome, it worked. 0.6 is too big. 0.5, 0.2, 0.3. Yeah, we'll go with that for now. Cool, good. So that will set the font size to 5.5 and it's just bringing in all my other stuff. So it's automatically setting all these other things that I've put. Now I could overwrite any of them, so I could come in here and then say that my letter spacing is actually 100 pixels, and then it's going to overwrite that one. But I don't have to overwrite it. The only one I have to set for sure is my font size. Actually, in this case, I do need to overwrite my color. My color is accent. Cool. Good. So then my H2, I can do an at include sans serif, font size of 2 rem, and bang, it's good, except this is way too light. That's my gray? Oh, it should be dark gray. Wow, that's my gray? Why does it look so much easier to read here? Colors. I mix them up. Copy, paste, save. Ah, now I can actually read stuff. Cool. Good, good, good. So sorry about that little detour in setting up the this little mix-in, but I do think it's a really useful mix-in to have. Just because mix-ins are awesome when we can use them. And my letter spacing looks pretty good on that. And of course, the one last thing that I just completely forgot about is my actual paragraphs, because they're not too far off. This is, I think, just going to be a font size of, what is it? Probably 0.875 rem. I'm pretty sure that's 14. My line height should already be set up from up here. And I'm not going to do that here. That should actually be my font size on my body. Just because I also want it to affect down here too. I want to make sure that it's on my labels and my other stuff as well. And anything that might not be in a paragraph, so I'm not going to put that on my paragraph. But what I will do, actually no, we're not going to do that on there. We're going to come up to here and say H1, H2, I don't have any H3s, right? So just P. I'm going to do a margin top of 0 and a margin bottom of 1em. Just for the moment, I do that on pretty much all my projects just because I find it helps me be able to control everything a little bit better. I will have this sometimes a bit more customized, and maybe this isn't exactly what I'll want at the end, but I think that's more or less where I want to be. I might be forgetting a couple of little things that I might be missing out. Normally that's how it works when I'm working on my projects. So if I am, I will be catching it later on. But if I did miss anything, make sure you leave a comment down below to let me know that I missed something so I can include it. Or you can even put in a pull request. This is up on GitHub, so you can follow along on GitHub. There is my starting point folder as well as my work progress folder. The work progress folder will probably be ahead of where my YouTube videos are because I do film these a little bit in advance, sometimes more, sometimes a couple of days before. But you might find that you see more work being done, but you can make a fork of it, put in a pull request for either a mistake I did, if there's a typo somewhere, anything like that, and ask to merge it in. And if it's something that I think would be a good idea, even if it's just like an improvement you think would be better, just go for it. And if I like the suggestion, I would definitely pull it in. If you have any questions, any comments, make sure to leave them down below in the comments, please. I try to reply to everybody who does leave a comment, so don't be shy. Go down and let me know what you think about this. If you did like the video, also hit the thumbs up so I know that you liked it. And of course, until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.